Hi, I'm Susanna and this is my April reading wrap-up. So in April I finished these 4 books. The first book is WildWood Revisited. This is a debut fantasy novel by indie author Cinasee Pollett. Angela Graham is a tome traveler. She can enter any book she wants as long as it's a first edition. Her favorite novel, WildWood, would be the perfect escape from the harsh reality of the life after World War I, if only its ending wasn't so dismal. When she learns that someone has tampered with the book's plot, she seeks help from the book's reluctant author, Aspen de Brun, to save her beloved woodland and its goblin residents. WildWood Revisited is the perfect, cozy and whimsical historical fantasy. I read this for the first time when it came out in 2023. I was an ARC reader and I also formatted this book, and I loved it so much that I wanted to reread it immediately. I loved it then, and I'm happy to say that I loved it as much now as I did when I first read it. The book is set in post-World War I London, and the historical setting is perfect for exploring the themes of grief and loss and literature's gift in restoring hope. The text is full of historical Easter eggs, and the author has clearly done her job in researching the time period. The cast of characters is immensely lovable, the pacing is brisk, and the text is very readable. I breezed through this book. The book within book was well done, and both stories worked well on their own. I love the whimsical nature of WildWood with its goblins, as well as the more sober tones of the war-torn London. This book made me laugh and cry, and I loved every moment of it. My only problem with this book was that I would have wanted it to be longer. As Angela herself says in the book, a reader never really wants a good story to end. I wanted to get to know the characters better and to spend more time with them. For example, Uncle Clement's storyline was wrapped up abruptly, and I'm not 100% sure how he fixed his issues. More closer to his story would have been nice, and I would have really wanted to learn more about Aspen's backstory as well. If you like historical fantasy and wish that you could travel in the books, this is the perfect read for you. I can see myself rereading this again in the future. Definitely a 5-star read, and I'm excited to see what Cinasee comes up next. If you want to learn more about Cinasee and her book, I have an author interview in my blog, link is in the description. The second book I finished in April is also a fantasy. This is a YA fantasy, The Dragon's Promise by Elizabeth Lim. Princess Shiori promised her late stepmother to return a dragon's pearl to its rightful owner. Keeping that promise turns out more dangerous than she could have imagined. A religious sect wants to kill her because of her magical skills, while a bloodthirsty demon has his eyes on the dangerous and capricious pearl with a mind of its own. Sometimes helping Shiori, sometimes deserting her when she needs it the most. The Dragon's Promise is a sequel to Six Crimson Cranes, which was one of my favorite reads of 2023. The duology is a young adult fairy tale retelling of the Six Swans set in an Asian-inspired fantasy world. This book picks up where Six Crimson Cranes left off and follows Shiori's story as she tries to fulfill the promise that she gave to her stepmother at the end of the first book. The Asian-inspired fantasy world with its magic and dragons, demons and gods is unique and captivating. I loved revisiting Kiara, Shiori's homeland. The descriptions of the underwater kingdom of the dragons and other parts of this fantasy world we get to experience in the sequel were fascinating as well. Shiori is a headstrong and active female lead. She's sometimes a bit infuriating, but I find that more palatable when the character is a teenager in a young adult book than if she was an adult. I would have wished her to have experienced more character development, especially as this is a second book in a duology. It felt like she hadn't really learned anything from what had happened in the first book. Shiori's relationship with her father and brothers was endearing. I would have liked to see more of her brothers though. Even in the end of this book, I wasn't sure if I could tell all 6 of them apart. Their characterization was more told rather than shown. Shiori's and Takan's developing relationship, on the other hand, was sweet, and I absolutely loved Kiki the paper bird. She was and still is my favorite character in the series. With Six Crimson Cranes I had a slight problem with the action scenes, and unfortunately this book didn't fare much better. I found the action scenes quite confusing as I wasn't always sure what was happening. Throughout the book, characters inexplicably disappeared from action and reappeared again when convenient for the plot, aka whenever Shiori needed to be saved. I found the ending a bit disappointing as well. It felt very lukewarm and convenient with its literal deus ex machina rather than the cathartic resolution I would have preferred. That being said, if you love young adult fantasy, definitely check out this duology. Six Crimson Cranes was amazing, and the sequel nicely wraps up Shiori's story. I'm giving this 4 stars. The 2 other books I finished in April are part of my Ancient Books project. The first is The Aeneid by Virgil. To be honest, this is not my favorite ancient epic. That title would go to Odyssey. And that is also the reason why I prefer the first half of Aeneid with its sea travel and mythological creatures to the latter half of the book with its battle scenes. But this is still definitely worth reading. The other book, on the other hand, I absolutely love. This is Medea by Euripides, and it's my absolutely favorite ancient Greek tragedy. I highly recommend this tragedy if you love ancient literature or ancient retellings. This particular edition had 4 different translations as well as essays. I'm currently in the middle of 2 books which I will finish in May. The other one is Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and the other one is Poetry by Sappho and Alcaeus. So here are all the books I'm planning to read in May. There's 2 more fantasy books, Legendborn by Tracy Deonn and The Atlas 6 by Olivier Blake. I will start this in May and finish this in June. I will also read a graphic novel, Mouse by Odd Spiegelman. This is from my local library. The rest of the books are translations from ancient text. I will read Aeschylus' Oresteia and Horace on poetry. And I also have a collection of texts written by ancient and medieval women concerning religion and gender. So those are the books I hope to read in May. Let me know in the comments what you're currently reading, and I'll see you in my next video.